So AMD just popped nearly 40%, and everyone's losing their minds. The reason? OpenAI. This story isn't just another tech partnership. This is a tectonic shift in the AI hardware game, one that could permanently reshape who powers the future of artificial intelligence. OpenAI and AMD are joining forces in a deal that gives OpenAI up to a 10% stake in AMD and access to as much as 6 gigawatts of GPU power over the next few years. That's not a typo. 6 gigawatts. To put that into perspective, the peak electrical capacity of the entire country of Finland is about 14 to 15 gigawatts. This deal is nearly 1/3 of that. And the crazy part, it's on top of OpenAI's existing 10 gigawatt deal with NVIDIA. Before we go any further, this is not financial advice. If you like learning about how these big moves can shape the future of investing, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It helps the channel massively and lets me keep bringing you the best breakdowns in the market. All right, let's dive in. This is one of those rare moments where a single partnership sends shockwaves through an entire industry. Because if you've been following AI infrastructure at all, you know it's been completely dominated by one name, NVIDIA. For years, every AI model, every cloud provider, every hyperscaler has relied on NVIDIA's GPUs, and that gave NVIDIA both a technological lead and a pricing power monopoly. But this AMD OpenAI deal, it changes everything. For OpenAI, this is about freedom, breaking away from dependence on a single supplier. Their main bottleneck right now isn't money, it's compute power. Training massive language models requires a ridiculous amount of GPUs. By partnering with AMD, OpenAI ensures it has a second pipeline of high-end chips, which means less risk, lower costs, and faster scalability. For AMD, this is validation on a level they've been chasing for years. They've always said their GPUs could compete with NVIDIA's, but the market never really believed it until now. Now they've landed the biggest client in AI. This is a credibility stamp of the highest order. It's like getting your first feature film produced by Spielberg after years of indie projects. And make no mistake, AMD doesn't need to beat NVIDIA to win. The market is simply too big for one company to supply it all. If NVIDIA is the gold standard, AMD just needs to be the silver medalist. And in a race this massive, the silver medalist still becomes a billionaire. Here's the key point everyone's missing. This deal isn't about replacing NVIDIA. It's about expanding the total AI compute capacity of the entire world. When OpenAI signs a deal this big with AMD, it's not taking away from NVIDIA, it's stacking on top. Demand is exploding so fast that even NVIDIA can't keep up. The AI revolution has moved beyond scarcity. Now it's about speed of scaling, and AMD is stepping up to fill the gap. Let's break down the structure of this deal. OpenAI plans to start with 1 gigawatt of AMD GPUs in 2026, ramping up to 6 gigawatts in total over time. And in exchange, AMD gives OpenAI an opportunity for up to a 10% ownership stake. That's a serious alignment of interests. It means OpenAI has skin in the game. They want AMD to succeed. Because if AMD can ramp production efficiently, OpenAI's compute costs drop dramatically. That's why this partnership makes perfect sense. OpenAI gets security, diversity, and scalability. AMD gets capital, prestige, and access to the hottest sector in tech. It's a win-win, not a zero-sum game. Now, if you zoom out, this is part of a much bigger trend. The second wave of AI infrastructure. The first wave was all about NVIDIA. They built the chips that made ChatGPT, Midjourney, and Claude possible. The second wave, starting now, is about redundancy, resilience, and competition. You're going to see hyperscalers like Microsoft, Google, Meta, and OpenAI lock in multiple hardware suppliers. And when that happens, the number 2 players, like AMD, will print money. So what does this mean for investors? Is it too late to buy AMD after a 40% spike? Let's look at the fundamentals. AMD's 5-year revenue growth is over 280%. Net income is up more than 350%. Free cash flow up over 500%. They're sitting on $7.3 billion in cash against $4.7 billion in debt. Their forward PE ratio is around 32, which, for a company in this growth lane, is actually not high at all. For comparison, Nvidia trades at a much higher multiple. That means despite the rally, AMD's valuation still looks healthy when you factor in future demand. And remember, this is a company that has already proven it can execute. Lisa Su, AMD's CEO, is widely regarded as one of the best operators in the semiconductor industry. This isn't hype, it's operational excellence meeting opportunity. And here's what's even more interesting. Insiders and institutions have been loading up for months. Look at the insider activity over the past quarter. There's been consistent net buying. Institutions like mutual funds and hedge funds have also been quietly increasing their stakes. These are the kinds of signals you want to see before a breakout move, not after. Now, what about Nvidia? Should you be worried if you hold Nvidia stock? Absolutely not. Nvidia is still the king of GPUs, the gold standard of AI computing. CUDA, their proprietary software ecosystem, remains the industry leader. But here's the real impact of this AMD OpenAI partnership. CUDA is no longer alone. For the first time in a decade, there's a legitimate alternative, AMD's ROCm platform. OpenAI using both CUDA and ROCm side by side gives AMD a credibility boost that money can't buy. It also forces Nvidia to innovate faster and price more competitively. This is exactly how healthy markets evolve. Competition forces efficiency, which drives innovation, which accelerates progress. So in the grand scheme of things, Nvidia doesn't lose here, and AMD doesn't just win. The entire AI hardware ecosystem levels up. Now let's talk about what 99% of investors are going to miss, because while everyone's busy talking about AMD, Nvidia, and OpenAI, the real money, the sneaky upside, might be hiding in the picks and shovels companies. Think about it. When you have massive GPU deployments like this, what do you need? Power, cooling, infrastructure. The companies that provide data center cooling, energy infrastructure, and power management are about to get flooded with demand. These aren't the flashy names like AMD or Nvidia, but they're the ones who quietly make it all possible. Every time OpenAI lights up a new server farm, it's these businesses that make it run. And most investors ignore them because they're not AI companies. But guess what? They're going to ride this AI boom just as hard, maybe even harder, because they're selling the essentials. They're the fuel stations for the AI world. If you've ever heard the phrase, during a gold rush, sell the shovels, that's exactly what's happening here. Nvidia and AMD are the miners, the infrastructure companies are the shovel sellers. The AMD OpenAI partnership is confirmation that the AI arms race is just getting started. We're not at the end. We're at the beginning of the scale-up phase. Think of this like the early 2000s for the internet. Back then, it wasn't just about web browsers. It was about fiber optics, servers, routers, and data centers, the backbone of the next 20 years. Today, GPUs are the new servers, and whoever controls the flow of compute controls the future of technology. Now, let's recap the key takeaways clearly and simply. OpenAI's deal with AMD is for up to 6 gigawatts of GPUs, starting with 1 gigawatt in 2026. OpenAI gets up to a 10% stake in AMD. AMD gets validation, partnership, and long-term revenue growth. Nvidia keeps its lead, but the market now has a credible second player. Demand for AI hardware skyrockets, and every company supporting this ecosystem, from cooling systems to energy providers, stands to benefit. This isn't a short-term trade. This is the beginning of a decade-long expansion of the AI infrastructure layer of the global economy. And here's the biggest point. AMD doesn't need to dethrone NVIDIA. It just needs to stay in the game. Because this market is growing too fast for one company to dominate alone. That's why this deal is so huge. It's not AMD versus NVIDIA. It's AMD plus NVIDIA versus the limits of compute. And when OpenAI's ambitions are as big as training models with hundreds of billions of parameters, trust me, there's enough room for both to thrive. So next time someone tells you it's too late to invest in AI hardware, remember this moment. The second supplier just got crowned. The AI race isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. And AMD is now officially in the driver's seat alongside NVIDIA. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want more insights into how these major tech stories connect to real investing opportunities, do me a favor, like this video and subscribe. It really helps the channel and keeps you in the loop for what's coming next. The bottom line, this AMD OpenAI deal is the real turning point. It proves that AI infrastructure isn't just about dominance, it's about scalability, reliability, and shared growth. And that's what makes it so powerful. I'll see you in the next one.